तो मुझे लगा कि शायद मरने के बाद ऐसे ही होता होगा। फिर एक आदमी था, तो उसकी पॉकेट में बीड़ी दिखी। तो मैंने उससे बोला कि बाबा बीड़ी मिलेगी? तो उसने बीड़ी जला के मेरे मुंह में दिया। मैंने कश लिया, बोला ठीक है, अभी सेंसेस में है, स्मोक आई कैन फील इट। वी आर डूइंग आवर प्रैक्टिस मिशन, that is when we got a call from radar that there is a unusual activity on across the border, Parakram, which is coming from there. So it was giving indication of F-16. F-16 is coming. They took a lock on us. So lock means now he is ready to launch a missile. तो हमने उसको ल्योर करके रखा, एक बंदे को उसके सामने रखा कि वो उसके पीछे पीछे जाते रहे. I turned around and came behind him. और उसको पता नहीं चला कि ये बंदा पीछे भी आ सकता है. तो we shot down the Su-30, and so we climbed to 3 kilometers, and from 3 kilometers we did a planned ejection. I just landed on a tree. So just to protect myself from a tree, I just stretched my legs, and by the time I had touched down, so I actually touched down on my hips. One मेरे पीछे मेरा number 2 था, and suddenly I got a call, sexy eject. And someone says that ki eject, that is a panic call, and you don't give a second thought, because if someone is given the call of eject, that means there is some fire or something very significant coming up. गए उसी रास्ते वापस. तो at one point of time X was on a tree holding his hand and sleeping. तो पीछे जाके उसको एक लात मार दी. वो उठा एकदम से, ओ शिट, ओ 1 किलोमीटर हो गया क्या? तो that was his first reaction. We still remember those times.
Welcome, friends. Today, we are honored to have retired Crew Captain Nitin Saxena on our podcast. Sir is a MiG-21 fighter pilot, a TACDE pilot, a veteran of Kargil War. Sir has an illustrious career in Indian Air Force. Sir, it's a privilege to have you over here on our podcast. Thank you for joining us, sharing your invaluable insights and rich experiences. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure actually to be with you young people. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much.
Sir, before we get into your military life, sir, what was your life like before joining NDA, and what was your motivation to join NDA? And how was your SSB experience? Did you clear it in the very first attempt?
Okay, so when I was in class 6, that time Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, he went to space, and seeing him, that 6th class motivation was that I also wanted to become an astronaut. So I was I was living in a very remote place, मध्य प्रदेश का. और वहाँ पे कोई ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं होती थी, सिर्फ न्यूज़पेपर आता था, एंड न्यूज़पेपर वाज फ्लडेड विद हिज फोटोग्राफ्स, magazines were flooded with the photographs. So that gave me inspiration to become an astronaut. So I used to say that I have to become an astronaut. And that time वो internet वगैरह नहीं होता था. There was no one in my family to guide me. So I, at my own, decided, searched how, because Rakesh Sharma was from Air Force. So I said, first I'll have to get into Air Force. So that was my motivation to join Air Force. And from the Air Force, to get into Air Force, now I had just one information that there is a Sainik school which prepares you for NDA. So I joined Sainik school, Viva, and from there I just continued to Air Force, and from Air Force wanted to become astronaut. However, unfortunately could not clear the exams, and that's how I became fighter pilot.
Yes, sir. Sir, did you clear the SSB in the very first attempt only?
Yeah, I attempted, cleared the SSB in very first attempt. But yes,
So, yes, sir.
yeah. Go
How
ahead.
did you feel when you first entered NDA? Can you share your relaxing life as a first timer in NDA? How was your experience in Singhad?
I was never relaxed in NDA till my 5th term. Probably 6th term was the only relaxed term. Otherwise, till 5th term, if someone says that he had a relaxed life in Air Force, then, in NDA, then he is not from NDA. So NDA is born to be tough, and it is born to be hectic. Singhad, yes, I have been through Singhad punishment, because that was that generally happens on Sunday. So if you are waking up early in the morning, running 20 kilometers up to Singhad and coming back, you don't have energy to left after Singhad, कि बस केबिन में जाके सो जाओ. और बाहर जाने का तो फिर स्कोप होता नहीं था। वैसे भी पुणे में यंग थे तो बाहर जाना वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ लाइफ लड़की लड़कियां देखने के लिए। लेकिन सिंगर हो गया तो वो आपका संडे चला गया। तो सिंगर हैज ए गुड मेमोरीज। इट वाज टफ टू clear the singer in given time, but yes, that gave us a lot of mental strength कि बेटा लगे रहो, खत्म तो होगा ही।
Sir, sir, could you share some memorable moments or funny moments or any pranks that you pulled at your time during your time at NDA?
एनडीए, you know, एनडीए 3 years passed just like this. मतलब there was no time for me to actually realize that the time is slow, and there were many funny events. So one funny event was that during our second term, there's a camp. So in the camp we were to do night march, और हम 2 दिन से सोए नहीं थे। सभी लोग थके हुए थे और रात को हम करीब 11 बजे नाइट मार्च के लिए निकलना था, और सुबह करीब 5 बजे तक हमें नाइट मार्च से वापस आना था। 4-5 घंटे का नाइट मार्च था। तो देवर टू गाइज, सब थके हुए थे। तो रात में एक्चुअली देयर इज वन मैप रीडर गाय हु इज इन द फ्रंट, और उसके पीछे 8 बंदे चलते रहते हैं, just at a distance of about 2-3 feet, so that you are seeing each other, because it is a dark night. So you can't, and you are passing through the jungle. So it is very easy for someone to get lost. So we always keep the other guy in contact. या उससे देखेंगे, बात करेंगे हल्के से। तो उसमें चल रहे थे। तो there was one X and there was one Y. सो एक्स एंड वाई डिसाइडेड कि यार सो नहीं पा रहे हैं, ऐसा कर, तू मेरे कंधे पे हाथ रख ले, चलते चलते सो लेना, और 1 किलोमीटर बाद मुझे जगा देना, तो विल चेंज द पोजिशन। सो एक्स वॉज गोइंग अहेड, वाई वॉज द लास्ट गाय। सो उसने उसके कंधे पे हाथ रखा, वो चलता गया। 1 घंटे बाद या अबाउट 1 किलोमीटर लेटर, उसने बोला हो गया बेटा 1 किलोमीटर, वापस आगे आ जा, मेरी बारी है। सो नाउ वाई केम अहेड एंड एक्स वेंट बिहाइंड, एंड दे कंटिन्यू। जब हम सुबह 5 बजे अपने वापस कैंप में पहुंचे तो देखा कि एक्स वॉज नॉट देयर। तो पहले तो हमारे जो डिविजनल ऑफिसर थे उन्होंने हमें रगड़ा लगाया कि हाउ कैन यू लीव योर कॉमरेड बिहाइंड यू। और उसके बाद फिर वापस उसी रूट पे हमको भेजा। तो एक तो ये था कि जब सब लोग वहां पे दूध और चॉकलेट पी रहे थे, हम लोगों का रगड़ा लग रहा था, तो सब उसी को गाली दे रहे थे कि कहाँ रह गया। और फिर हमें वापस भेजा गया जब बाकी रेस्ट टाइम था, तो सब खुंदक में तो थे ही, गए उसी रास्ते वापस। तो एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम एक्स वाज ऑन अ ट्री होल्डिंग हिज हैंड एंड स्लीपिंग। तो पीछे आके उसको एक लात मारी। वो उठा एकदम से, वो शिट, ओ 1 किलोमीटर हो गया क्या। तो दैट वाज हिज फर्स्ट रिएक्शन, दैट वी स्टिल रिमेम्बर दोस टाइम्स।
So, being in the senior term, and also, so how, you were from Sainik school only. So, how did you perform in India boxing and cross country? And how was your life like being a senior termer?
Yeah, I was not very good in running. I'll say I was, in fact, I just survived NDA standards barely. But yeah, boxing was good, so I participated. It was NDA was good, but some point of time in my third term, I decided to quit boxing because I was in Air Force, and if I get injured in my nose or ears, that could have prevented me from getting into Air Force. So I left boxing. Although when I was in school, I used to do a lot of boxing. So that was one favorite game which I quit just to remain fit for Air Force, just to avoid any injury. And then you asked about the sixth term. Yes, sixth term was good. As a senior in NDA, I was a divisional cadet captain, so some responsibilities, but I enjoyed. I enjoyed all the terms, and sixth term was the term I enjoyed maximum. थोड़ा टाइम मिल जाता था उसमें। रगड़ा नहीं होता था, अनऑफिशियल वाला।
The King's Life, sixth summer.
या एक्चुअली वहां पे तो इफ यू आर गोइंग टू द बाथरूम इन ओनली अ गाउन, इट्स ए बिग प्रिविलेज, एंड इफ यू आर हैविंग ए मील with a relaxed mind, it's a privilege. You are a king. So that is available only to the sixth timer. First timer has to take a square meal.
So, so after moving on from India, you went for flying. So were you at AF or BFTS?
I was at both places. My first term, first 6 terms, I was at BFTS, and then BFTS, I flew HPT 32, and then we went to AFA. There we flew Kiran Mark once.
So, so having experience of both the academies, which one do you like more? And so how was your first solo flying? Did you have face any difficulties while learning the art of flying?
Okay, so BFTS or AFA that time was bifurcated because of shortage of airspace to train. It was not two different academies. It was just part of one Air Force academy. We were segregated because airspace was limited. So the type of training in BFTS and AFA is almost same. BFTS was more relaxed because the watchdogs were less on us. Our mess was secluded. मतलब सारी पॉपुलेशन से बहुत दूर था, तो वो हमारी प्राइवेट मेस टाइप हो गई थी, तो वहाँ पे वी यूज्ड टू हैव अ गुड फन. Otherwise, training wise, BFTS and AFA are same. Now coming to the second part of your question, flying. Yes, flying was difficult to learn. I'll say that it took time for me to learn flying, and initially it was I was just read it, and then do it. But flying is not only just reading and studying. It is more of giving your thought process, sitting on the chair and then doing the chair flying. So, which I got it after some time. But yes, it was a distinct change from what we learn in the schools or in the books to the flying, because you are in cockpit or hardly for 45 minutes and you have to learn for almost each and everything in those 45 minutes only. And Air Force does not give much chances. If you can't learn quickly, they will put you down. So that was a big challenge. And first solo, yes, first solo was good, because in my first solo, I was able to trim the aircraft for the first time correctly. When my instructor used to be there, so trimming is what, when you're flying, you are holding some pressures on the hand and your feet. So you trim that pressure off, and then aircraft flies beautifully, uh, which is the first requirement for a good pilot. So when the instructor is sitting, he is giving input. You are thinking कि अच्छा अभी करेंगे तो पिट जाऊंगा मैं, तो और कुछ करूंगा तो पिट जाऊंगा, तो you are साइड बाय साइड होते थे, बहुत पिटते थे हम. एंड तो जब मैं सोलो गया तो बिकॉज ही वाज नॉट देयर, नाउ आई न्यू दैट कि आई हैड टू डू इट माई सेल्फ, and I could actually fine tune the trimming, and that was the most satisfying thing that I could learn in my solo, that I could learn to trim the aircraft.
Sir, sir, do you have any interesting moments from these academy? And so I have heard there are two types of instructors. One which when you are learning shouts on you, and one which remains calm. So what type you had? And any interesting moment?
Unfortunately, I had the instructors who were shouting all the time. And the shouting is a very polite word. Uh, Hitting it, beating it also. And but yes, I'll not say that is a good way of teaching, because when I became instructor, I made sure that I do not lose my temper, and I understand what the student is,
So
where
you
the
were in
student
yes?
is. No, I was in TACDE as instructor,
Okay,
and
okay.
then subsequently in the squadrons also we used to teach people to land the aircraft.
So, so you went through an injection. Can you describe what actually happened? Prabha told me about this that you went through an injection, and there's also one more funny story to that also. Any
Yeah,
experience?
you got a lot of stories because you are my son's friend. So, so actually, there was a technical problem, and one of the wheel had not come down. Because the wheel did not come down, the aircraft could not be landed. So I had to purposely eject from that aircraft.
Which aircraft was this?
This was MiG-21 and a
Uh,
trainer aircraft, twin-seater.
okay, so this must be Type 77 96, right?
No, this was Type 69. Type 69 is a twin-seater.
Okay.
So we were two of us, we ejected together, and because the wheel failed to come down. And so ejection was, we were all prepared as a fighter pilot, you have to prepare for ejection every day. I at least used to go through the ejection drill almost every day. And we are ready for ejection because if you are hesitant in ejecting, then you may not survive. So that is the first thing which is taught, that believe your instincts and take the actions quickly. But in this case, there was a lot of time with me. I could actually add a lot of time to think and take actions. So we climbed to 3 kilometers, and from 3 kilometers, we did a planned ejection. And when I was coming down, um, I just landed on a tree. So just to protect myself from a tree, I just stretched my legs, and by that time I had touched down. So I actually touched down on my hips. And when I touched down, there was a severe pain. I could not move thereafter. तो मुझे लगा कि भैया टाइम आ गया अब तो. And this was in Rajasthan, so a lot of people came from the nearby villages, and I was lying down, they came over me. तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि इसे these all not from Mother Earth, they are coming from somewhere else. तो मुझे लगा कि शायद मरने के बाद ऐसे ही होता होगा. फिर एक आदमी था, उसकी पॉकेट में बीड़ी दिखी. तो मैंने उससे बोला कि बाबा बीड़ी मिलेगी. तो उसने बीड़ी जला के मेरे मुंह में दिया. मैंने कश लिया, मैं बोला ठीक है, अभी सेंसेस में है. स्मोक, आई कैन फील इट, आई कैन फील द हीट ऑल्सो. सो दैट वाज माय सेंस दैट आई एम अलाइव. सो पेन इज जस्ट ए टेम्पररी, इट इज ओके, एंड आई हैव सर्वाइव्ड द एजेक्शन. एंड अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसके बाद वो न्यूज इतनी ज्यादा फेमस हो गई कि न्यूज़पेपर में आया कि पायलट ने इजेक्ट करते सी बीड़ी मांगी. एंड माय कोर्समेट्स आल्सो से दैट कि आई इजेक्टेड जस्ट टू हैव ए बीड़ी. तो वैसे ही पी लेता बोलते हैं.
So, can you tell us about your experience at TACDE? What was it like to train among the best fighter pilots in the country?
Yeah, TACDE is the premier institution of Indian Air Force. Uh, it's like Top Gun of US Navy. So aim of TACDE is that they prepare SOPs and tactics for new weapons, new aircraft, maybe Indian Air Force aircraft or maybe adversaries aircraft. They also work to integrate all the resources that we have to fight. तो आपको यूएवीज को इंटीग्रेट करेंगे, गरुड़ के स्पेशल फोर्सेस को इंटीग्रेट करेंगे, हमारे जो SHGW मिसाइल सिस्टम्स होते हैं उनको कैसे इंटीग्रेट करना है, और जो अलग अलग टाइप के फाइटर प्लेन्स है उनको कैसे एक साथ मिलकर लड़ना है. क्योंकि अ, अभी टाइम ऐसा आ गया है कि आप पुराने जमाने में जैसे डॉग फाइट होता था, अब वो डॉग फाइट होती है, लेकिन आपके साथ में बहुत सारे ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल है. आपके पास रडार है, आपके पास एयरबोर्न रडार है, वी कैन गिव यू द थ्रेट. मिसाइल्स के रेंजेस बहुत ज्यादा हो गए हैं. तो देयर इज एक्चुअली नीड फॉर इंटीग्रेटिंग all the forces, then only we can win the war. And that is the aim of TACD, that they integrated all the resources available with us to fight the war. So TACD was one of my most satisfying part of my career. I stayed there for 4 years, and so you get the people from the best pilots from squadrons. वो थोड़ा सा एक्स्ट्रा नॉलेज लेके आते हैं. दे आर कॉन्फिडेंट इनफ टू वट एवर यू टेल देम. and then you are here to just mingle them together. So as an instructor, you could not tell them कि okay ये चीज blindly ऐसे होती है, because they will ask and they will give their own opinion to counter it. So that was a good learning, because I could not shoot shit from there, and TACDE doesn't shoot shit, because whatever TACDE says, it is taken as a truth in Air Force. So it required a lot of study on my part, lot of discussion, lot of intelligence assessment from the adversary to tell ki this is how we should be going about it. And in tactics, nothing is right, nothing is wrong. The few things you cannot be totally wrong. You have to be somewhere there. You have to read the psychology also to understand the psychology of adversaries. So that was a good exposure for me to train almost for 4 years. That's it.
So can you share some of the moments or air combat moments in TACDE? And did you practice strictly against MiG-21, or did you practice air combat against different aircrafts as well?
No, when we are in the squadron, we actually practice amongst ourselves. So if I have a MiG-21 squadron or Su-30 squadrons, we generally integrate between us only. But in TACDE, the most important is that you have to learn to fight with others. Like a Su-30, when it fights with the MiG-21, a MiG-21 is at disadvantage because of its
Raid fighter.
limited capability. It's a primitive aircraft. Su-30 is a modern aircraft. But if Su-30 के साथ dog fight करना हो तो you cannot win it. So MiG-21 को यदि उसके साथ dog fight करना है तो he has to go away from his radar, because if he can't see on radar, he cannot see with his eyes. But MiG-21 pilot, if he is not seeing the aircraft on radar, he can still see the Su-30 with his eyes because of its large size. So it's just an example that you have to actually see what is his limitation and utilize his limitation. So in TACDE, that is what is taught. You may not be the best person against him. You may not have the full strength to take it head on. But if you do not have it, then how do you go about it? You cannot say that I'll not go. So then you apply the system knowledge, you technical limitations of the missiles or aircraft. You go through those and see, okay, the radar can see only this much, can tilt only this much. So at certain distance, instead of coming from here, I come from here. So you have to read, you have to practice it, and then give it the solution to the rest of the Air Force. So that was a very interesting part.
So what variants did you fly MiG-21 only?
Sorry?
What variants type did you fly in MiG-21?
I was lucky that I could fly almost all variants of MiG-21 in Indian Air Force. Air Force had a Type 66 and Type 69 Bravo as trainers. So I had flown all three of them. Then Type 77 was the first aircraft which came during 1971s. I flew that also. Then switched over to Type 96, which is a ground attack version of MiG-21. That also I flew. Then Type 75, which is the air defense version of MiG-21. And the Bison aircraft, which is the advanced version of, or the modernized version of Type 75. So I was lucky that I could fly almost 2,500 hours of MiG-21s in my 25 years of career.
So how was Bison different from these Type 77, Type 96, and was there MFD, and was there issue of ground clutter as well in Bison?
Okay, so Bison is basically a Type 75 aircraft structure which has been modified with a navigation system and had a display, MFDs, and better avionics and radar. So the structure remains same. It has been upgraded. Basically, the computer has been upgraded, and it has the ability to integrate the missile as well as the radars, electronic warfare equipment, and gave a consolidated picture to the pilot. So if you compare Bison and the old Mirage 2000, which came initially from France, they were comparable. So Bison is much more advanced version when you compare with the Type 75 or Type 96. Also, it had a good weapon systems. So it had a IR guided missiles, it had a radar guided missiles. So the combat lethality of the system had also increased.
So was ground filter removed, which was initially in Type 75 and Type 77?
Yeah. So ground clutter is basically a technical issue which will be there whenever there is a radar. But as I told you that Bison radar or any modern aircraft, fighter aircraft radar, they have now the computer system, which is, I say in a layman's term, there is a computer which can say that key, boss, if you are flying at height of 3 kilometers and you are looking at 10 kilometers, so you do the sine theta, cos theta, you can know that okay, this is the range at which the ground will be there. So any return which is coming from there, you just cancel it. Don't show it to me. So because it is a computer system, it could cancel it. And also there's a pulse radars, all the AI radars, air interceptor radars, which are coming now. They are the pulse Doppler radars. So pulse Doppler radars follows the Doppler principle. And with this, it's very easy to cut down the clutter. So
Yes.
Type 75, Type 96 had a clutter problem, but Bison was much better.
Yes, sir. So, what's the maximum Gs that you have pulled and sustained? And so, there are some famous stories in Indian Air Force that one pilot pulled so many Gs in MiG-21 that the wings of the aircraft were bent. So, do you have such stories to tell?
I'm not aware of such stories. If the wings bend, they will break. So aircraft has a limitation. If you cross that limitation, there will be some damage to the aircraft because it's a machine. So any force that you put beyond certain limit, it will have a damage to it. So the maximum G that I have pulled in instantaneously for a fraction of second is about 10 G. That is not intentional. That was by mistake. Because if you do it intentional, you are actually damaging the aircraft. So there is a limitation for G. We follow that limitation strictly. Sustainatively, yes, if it can sustain like Newton can sustain up to 6G or 7G for about 5 to 10 seconds. Yeah, so that was the part of normal combat practice that we used to do.
Yes, sir. So, apart from ejections, what are the emergencies that you have seen in while flying, and how did you cope up with that? And also, can you tell us what's the most awe-striking view you have seen from a cockpit?
Yeah, that's a very good question because MiG-21, because it was old, it was very prone to failures. And in the later part of MiG-20, later time of MiG-21, the failures have started coming up, which are actually non-explainable. So it's like a pipeline going from one place to another. Sometimes the leak will be here, sometimes the leak will be in the center, sometimes the leak will be in the other portion. So we actually cannot identify where will be the problem. So that was a good part. We knew that yes, MiG-21 is getting old. So me as a pilot, intention was that we are ready for all the emergencies and know the technical about the aircraft, how to handle this. So there were a number of emergencies. If I take a count, every year at least two major emergencies used to happen, like oil pressure failure or hydraulic failure, pneumatic failures. So generator failures. So on an average, about two failures in a year was the rate. But good part was that key most of the time, or almost all the time, except for the last when I ejected, I could manage the error or the fault and quickly come back and land.
Yes, sir. And so, what's the most beautiful or the awe-striking or inspiring view you have seen from cockpit?
Yeah. Okay. So I was flying. I was a flying officer, and Kargil War has just finished. So we were after the Kargil War, a lot of emphasis was given on having the valley operations for all the pilots. So I was just a flying officer, and I was flying with my CO as number one. So when you are in the valley, you are actually following the number one, wherever the number one is going. And I was in a 17th squadron, that was the Golden Arrows, and their task was to click the photographs on ground. It was a reconnaissance aircraft. So we used to actually go close to the ground in the valley and then click the photograph, because if you are far away from that target, then quality of photograph is not that good. So we are allowed to go up to 150 meters from valley floor. So we were flying north of Srinagar, and suddenly the clouds started coming, covering the valley. And it was a winter's time, so everything on the ground was white. And when this happens, then the most prudent thing is that you come out of the valley and go above the valley floor, because now you can't see much. So there's a very high probability that you may hit the valley. So my CO, he just engaged reheat. So when he engages reheat, the flame comes from the behind. And when the flame came out, the complete white snow turned into orange snow. And that was the most beautiful sight I've seen in aviation.
So in MiG-21, since it has only one engine, and also जो F-16 है, it has F-16 EJU Block 50. It also has one engine. It uses hydrazine for power backup, emergency power backup. So in case of there is power failure, तो आपके पास कोई था कि बैकअप के लिए, just like F-16?
No, F-16, if I'm not wrong, F-16 has a power backup for hydraulics as well as for electrical supply. That is for a short time to land, so that you can just come and land. Yes, MiG-21 has, not for the, even for the hydraulics it has, and for the electrical system also it has. So you could survive for another 5-10 minutes, and it is better that you could come back and land within those 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
In case the failure is limited failure.
Yes, sir. So आपकी अभी तक की सबसे most memorable dogfight कौन सी है? Can you tell us about it?
Yes, sir. So dogfight, तो हम टैगडी में थे, तो टैगडी में मालूम है फाइटर पायलट हमेशा एक दूसरे की लेने में लगे रहते हैं. तो there was a Su-30 guy who was saying that MiG-21 is shitty. In fact, वो खुद ही MiG-21 पायलट था. Obviously, हर बार हम जाते थे वो हम लोग को चेप देता था. तो हमने सोचा कि इसको चेपना है, कुछ भी करके ना इसको चेपना है. तो हम दो MiG-21 आ गए. उसने बोला कि यार तुम दो आ जाओ, मैं अकेला Su-30 में जाऊंगा, तुम दोनों को चेपूंगा. तो हमने बोला कि ठीक है, हम भले ही चिप जाए, लेकिन आज इसको मारना जरूर है. तो हम दो MiG-21 डिफेंडर बन के गए, वो अटैकर बना. और जो इनिशियल टैक्टिक्स होती थी उसके एकदम अपोजिट किया हमने. तो वो फॉक्स हो गया थोड़ा सा. और एक को हमने उसको ल्योर करके रखा, एक बंदे को उसके सामने रखा कि वो उसके पीछे पीछे जाता रहे. आई टर्न अराउंड एंड केम बिहाइंड इट. और उसको पता नहीं चला कि ये बंदा पीछे भी आ सकता है. और उसके बाद में जब उसको पता चला, तो नाउ ही वांटेड टू shake me off, but by that time it was too late. So we shot down the Su-30. And Su-30 में क्या है कि उसमें RWR होता है. तो कोई भी रडार यदि पीछे से उसको ट्रैक कर रहा होता, तो पायलट गेट्स a सिग्नल कि somebody is behind me. So I put my radar off, ताकि उसको पीछे से पता ना चले. और जैसे ही मिसाइल फायर करने का टाइम था, 1 सेकंड पहले रडार ऑन किया और मतलब डमी मिसाइल फायर की. तो ही डिडंट हैव मच टाइम, लेकिन जब तक वो उसको रियलाइज होता, तो वो शूट डाउन हो चुका था. फिर उसको वापस, ऑल्दो उसने मेरे दूसरे बंदे को भी शूट डाउन कर दिया था जब तक. लेकिन जमीन पे आके उसको ये नहीं बोलना, मतलब ये बोलने में बड़ी शर्म आ रही थी कि मैं मिग-20 से शूट डाउन हो गया हूँ.
It is quite great that you actually took down Su-30 with 2 MiGs only, because जो मैंने सुना है कि 1 Su-30 is equal to 3 MiGs, 3 MiG-21, and even in
नहीं
close
यार,
combat fight, Su-30 सर कोबरा मनोवर करके अपने बोर साइड मोड से लॉक कर सकता है MiG-21 को. एंड I believe that कि जो MiG-21 में जो cockpit है उतना ज़्यादा spacious नहीं है and not that much visible. And as was fly-by-wire there in
No,
MiG-21.
MiG-21 does not have a fly-by-wire. But that's what I'm saying. When you have to fight, even not only in Air Force, even the civil life also, or anywhere, normal colleges also. If you can't take anything head on, you have to think of something, some other method to tackle it. You cannot leave it like this. So that is what uh, teaches you to be a fighter pilot. I may be a MiG-21 pilot. It was just that I could have flown the Su-30s also on Mirage 2000. So Mirage 2000 guy would have been a posting आ जाता MiG-21 squadron तो MiG-21 उड़ा रहा होता. So it is not that कि you are a Su-30 pilot so you have gained special skills. It is the aircraft which has the skill. So you have to actually apply your. That is what the fighter pilot has to think about it. उसकी weakness क्या है उसको weakness को कैसे utilize करना है.
So did MiG-21 have any encrypted data linking capabilities like Link 16 or Link 11? Or and if your radio gets jammed during a dogfight, आप formation you are doing formation flying and आपका radio jam करने लग जाए, so then how do you communicate with allies? Because आप एक दूसरे में crash भी कर सकते हो. You have to accordingly manage कि सामने enemy है तो हम crash ना कर जाए सही block करें. What do you do in those situations?
So the radio can jam. Dogfight is generally done visually. When you are in combat, you are seeing the other aircraft. And also you have the radar, but radar may not see because radar has a very limited cone of angle to see, but your eyes can move all around. So dogfight is generally done with your own eyes. And you are in a close proximity to each other. So that is where the dogfight takes place. Sorry, I just lost the track of your question. Your question was that how do you do the dogfight?
Yes, if your radio gets jammed or if you're being given false commands by some enemy ATC.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. That happens. You must have heard about Abhinandan's case also. And once I was after the Parliament attack, again we were operating in Srinagar and Valley में जा रहे थे. I was number one. मेरे पीछे मेरा number two था. And suddenly I got a call, sexy eject.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I got a call from somewhere that sexy eject. So when you are flying and someone says that key eject, that is a panic call, and you don't give a second thought because if someone has given the call of eject, that means there is some fire or something very significant coming up. But I was not ready for ejection that time, and we were in Valley, so Valley was coming in the front. So I thought that before I eject, at least let me make myself safe first. So in this, when I was avoiding the Valley, I got time to look inside and I saw that everything is fine. Why should I eject? So I asked my number to confirm. You gave a call of eject. Negative. So we knew that someone from other side, we knew that Saxi is coming and he just gave a call of eject. तो फिर हम वापस टर्न किए वहां गए और वहां बहन किया उसकी और आ गया फिर वापस. सो फॉल्स कमांड आते हैं काफी सारे ऐसे.
So, because I realized that this could be a bit disadvantage अगर आपके in calls encrypted नहीं है. They can and were enemy able to listen to our calls कि हम जो भी रेडियो में बात कर रहे हैं.
Yeah, if it is not encrypted, anybody can listen it.
Because what I heard that Pakistan during 1990s and early 2000 had edge over us because they had Cosmo, which was encrypted set, and we did not have it. So they were able to listen to our RTs and everything. So उसमें में 90% डॉग फाइट का डिसएडवांटेज नहीं हो जाएगा हमें because they know कि हम क्या करने जा रहे हैं.
No, it is very difficult actually to make out the complete sit and at the same time give a call. It's very difficult to understand, but yes, it is not very difficult. It is not impossible. It can be done. So yes, encrypted RT has an advantage over non-encrypted RT. But in dogfight, because you are seeing things, that RT does not make so much of a disadvantage as much as in a BVR combat, because BVR combat originates with the radio transmission.
Yes, sir. So coming to BVR combat, what were the capabilities of MiG-21 Bison in terms of BVR? And can you share some interesting BVR fights which you had?
Uh, yeah, this is a very confidential question actually. So I'll just
So
answer it
whatever
when
is
I.
possible early,
Yeah,
that is allowed.
so yes, MiG-21 Bison had a radar. MiG-21 Bison had a radar-guided missiles, and they could fight with those radars. So BVR capability was good with the weapons that they had. Although the limitation of weapon ranges and radar ranges were existing compared to the Su-30 aircraft, yes, they were there. But it was capable of taking down the adversary's aircraft, including the F-16s, which Abhinandan proved it. It was able to take on those F-16s also. I'll say that it may not be superior. You cannot fight head on, but you could always get on from the sides and utilize its weaknesses.
Yes, sir. How
Uh,
you utilize the exploit the aircraft and how what energy game you play during fight.
yeah, that is the most important thing. In one of the incident, I was flying in Rajasthan sector, and we are doing our practice mission. That is where we got a call from radar that there is a unusual activity on across the border, and they are coming to the border at a very high speed. So can you just have a look at those? So I just turned. We were two of us, so we just turned towards the border, rolled out on 270, and radar had given us that there's about 50-60 kilometers coming front of you, and we were also flying close to the border. So, 50-60 kilometers coming in your frontal quarters. So we switched on. Our radars were already on, so we switched on the radar. We could see the blips, two aircraft coming, and we have a RWR also. So RWR has the capability to identify the type of aircraft which is coming from there. So it was giving indication of F-16.
Yes, sir. So was
And
this old one which has X, Y, A, Z, or was this a new one?
this was the old version of F-16.
Sir.
This was the old version of F-16. So we got F-16 is coming. They took a lock on us. So lock means now he's ready to launch a missile. And F-16 has a very good missile, AIM-120, which has got a range. They claim to be range of 120 kilometers. And we didn't have that much longer range missile. But yes, we also opened up the radar, took a lock on him. So we came together head on, came to a distance of about 20 kilometers from the border, and that is the time in peacetime we should be maintaining that sanctity of the international border. So we just turned away. And we just turned away and then again turned inside. And again we took a lock on each other. Uh, तो लॉक लेके दोनों ने लॉक दिया, उसके बाद फिर टर्न करके हमारा तेल खत्म हो गया था, हम वापस आ गए. बट इस तरह की मतलब कुत्ते बिल्ली वाला गेम जनरली चलता रहता है. बट गुड पार्ट वाज दैट व्हेन वी केम बैक, लोगों ने बोला कि व्हाई डिड यू टेक लॉक ऑन हिम, व्हाई वर यू थ्रेटनिंग हिम. तो हमारे पास मिसाइल थी नहीं. तो मिसाइल नहीं थी, वो हमें मालूम था, उसको थोड़ी ना मालूम.
Yes, sir.
तो यदि वो हमें थ्रेटन कर रहा है तो हम भी उसको थ्रेटन करेंगे.
It's a way to show कि don't try some stunts. We will fire if you
No,
pull
you
it
have
off.
to you have to be play with common sense. That is most important trait of a fighter pilot. You have to play with the common sense. You cannot just go on to the SOP के SOP में लिखा है तो मैं यही करूँगा.
Yes, sir. So this must be during Operation Parakram, right?
No, it was much later than.
Yes, sir. So was this the only time you collided with Pakistani Air Force?
Yeah, such a direct interaction was only this time, but never before that we didn't do. There were chances after the parliament attack. There were uh, occasion when the situation had become very tense and we used to fly sort of a patrolling missions and all. So we used to see those aircraft. But such a direct contact was only this time.
Yes, sir. And sir, did you like in Top Gun, like Maverick has done flying near the ATC. So have you ever tried that flying below the hard deck?
You try an Air Force, you'll be grounded. And not for that, not that it is a very difficult part. Anyone can
No,
do it, but
not in the station. CU is out of station. Have you tried that?
no, it is not that. Yes, at times people do to impress the girls, but if you do so, it is not recommended. Air Force is very strict about it. No show off. And because it is not a very difficult thing to come down, fly over something at a high speed. You are not doing any bravery in doing that, but you are you're showing off and you're showing the attitude, which a fighter pilot should not have it, because overconfidence is the root cause of all the accidents.
It's another thing that you are playing a big gamble with a big thing and your life ultimately.
Yeah,
Because
obviously the government is giving you thousands of crores of aircraft. So it cannot be flown with such a irresponsible behavior. You have to be sensible and you take risk when it is required. So you have to take risk when it is required, and people will support you. But showing off, Air Force doesn't pardon.
yes, sir. So can you share some interesting moment from your inter-squadron competition as well? Did you participate in any inter-squadron competition?
Yeah, inter-squadron competition in Air Force.
Yes.
Yeah, we used to have a gunnery meet wherein we participate in firing the bombs and rockets. तो उस समय सारे इनोवेशंस लेके आते हैं, सब थूक लगाते हैं सामने वाला क्या कर रहा है, दूसरे स्क्वाड्रन में क्या फंडा चल रहा है, बंदे को दारू पिला के उससे पूछते हैं कि कौन कैसा क्या कैलकुलेशन चल रहा है भाई तुम्हारे यहाँ. तो वो सब कॉम्बिनेशन होता रहता है. तो that's also a good part of development.
Yes, sir. Sir, did you ever drink and fly?
No,
Because my father flew with 27 one time after he was drunk, he was telling me.
no, I never. That was the discipline
Yes,
I
sir.
maintained. I never
He was
drank
saying
and
that that time they weren't strict during 90s, 90.
yeah, they may not be, but I was never comfortable flying after drinking. So I just maintained my own limits. I never drank. I don't even drive after drinking. So flying is a difficult, is too far.
Yes, sir. Sir, did you face any scenario where your aircraft's limits were pushed beyond what you thought, and you also pushed beyond yourself in order to counter the threat?
Yeah, it was a training mission. So MiG-21 is not very controllability wise. If you reduce the speed to certain limit and you do something extra to the aircraft, you tell something extra to be done by the aircraft. Actually, the aircraft doesn't respond. It generally responds in the opposite manner. So yes, this happened. I had just done my TACDE course. थोड़ा सा ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस हो गए थे और तो स्क्वाड्रन में आया तो ना एवरीवन लुक्स अपॉन कि अच्छा ये तो TACDE का वहां से टॉप गन से बन के आया है, तो ये एक्स्ट्रा कॉम्बैट स्किल्स. और ऐसे ही मेरे पीछे पड़ गया एक बंदा. सो जस्ट टू शेक हिम ऑफ, आई टुक द एयरक्राफ्ट टू ए लिमिट एंड एयरक्राफ्ट जस्ट डिड अ स्विंग. एंड उसमें ऐसा मतलब वो aircraft was just going out of my controls. But I took it to a very long and I recovered. I lost almost 2-3 kilometers of height, and that was a flight safety hazard. So I just raised my hand, and my CEO was also in the formation. So he said that "Ki now you have learned it a harder way. Never ever do this again." And I, when I became instructor, I also used to say that you don't try to learn. You don't have to put your finger into the plug point to realize that this is how the electricity feels. So aim is that there is a clear-cut blanket given for the aircraft performance that should be respected by all the pilots.
So, have you ever participated in any joint exercises with foreign air forces? How was your experience with them?
I had been to Abu Dhabi with for an exercise as an observer, and yes, we used to sit in the briefing and debriefing, and that time we were actually trying to find the solutions to the some problems that we were facing from our adversary in terms of better weapon systems that they had purchased recently. So we had gone and we are just trying to see how the people fight with such threats. So we were the observers. So I was not flying there. We were just observing them how they do. That was one of my international exercises. And apart from that, MiG-21, I did not participate because MiG-21 could not go for a long ferry to foreign countries.
So, as a CEO and coup, how did your roles and responsibility evolve? And can you share some interesting moments?
Uh, every pilot actually, when he gets into the squadron, he is under the direct control of CEO. And CEO has to be matured enough to not see the black and white, but also to see the grays. So, as a CEO, my role was obviously as a professional guide. It was also a personal guide as well as the emotional guide for the people. And then only we can actually make a good team because everyone who is passing SSB is good. We assume that it is good. Then only that's why he's a pilot and in Air Force. And we have to just maintain that motivation level as well as their develop their personal skills and the professional skills also. So that is where the role changes from combat instructor to a CO, where you have to see more of a managerial things other than the professional development. So my CO's tenure was to build up a good team, motivate the young people to think differently, remain in touch with the technology so that you are not left behind. Uh, look around, have a good sports, uh, group sports and all. So that was my role as a CEO. Also, when you are a CEO, you actually not only looking after the pilots, you are looking after the technical teams also, administrative teams also, and you are coordinating with other administrations of the stations. So my role was changed purely from a fighter pilot to a sort of a manager, a motivator for us. And same with the coup's job is basically to facilitate the operations. So I was to see that what is going to hinder the operation, how operations can be better, how pilots can be more comfortable. That was my job as well.
So, what's the most memorable sortie you had? And also, can you tell how did the radar perform how did the MiG-21 radar perform during high stress scenario and high stress environment like deep fog? And have you ever landed aircraft in high crosswinds where aircraft is like going? There are some videos on internet.
No, I have not done. I'll say that every time I landed, it was within the capability of the aircraft, and it was never like this. It was always straightened. So MiG-21 has a very high landing speed. So if you draw the vectors of wind coming from crosswind and the your own velocity vector, it generally takes you that variation is not much. So MiG-21 generally lands on a straight path. It's only the light aircraft which are affected by the winds, and they do like this for coming for landing. Or maybe a Boeing aircraft which has got a very large wings which are affected by the winds. So MiG-21 has a very small wing, high landing speed, doesn't get much affected by the winds. The second
So,
part
and
is for the
Captain
radars.
sortie.
Sorry.
What's the any memorable sortie? What's your favorite sortie you had? Or any memorable sortie?
I think that will be too many of them to just think of a scenario. you get it a lot of times. But yes, one memorable sortie was uh, I was doing the course in TACDE, and mm, because to remain, uh, our aim was to deliver the weapon on target on in time. And unfortunately, mm, we were getting four bombs, and my all three bombs had gone bad. So I was about to be thrown out of TACDE from training. So fourth bomb, when I had to go, I had a lot of pressure to perform it. And fourth one, when I went, so in that pressure, anxiety, or whatever, again the fourth not only went wrong, uh, way away from the target, but also I crossed certain limits of aircraft. So as soon as I landed, my chief instructor was shouting on me, and he said that my deputy commandant was shouting on me, and he said, "Buddy, you need to be thrown out of this," and I was shattered. So I don't know how he got some some sense. Okay, okay, I give you one more chance. If you do wrong, you will be sent back to the squadron. So by that time, I had actually broken down. I said, "Yeah, bullshit. I can't take that much of stress. अब तो भाड़ में जाए दुनिया. Let's go and do it with free mind." So I went with a free mind and was a good score. So when I landed, डिप्टी कमांडेंट said that कि तुमने क्या खाया था? मैंने सर आपकी डांट खाई थी. So point is that at times we get into a lot of pressure, our performance reduces, and if you are away from the pressures, our performance actually improves. It's the real performance. So that was a good learning uh, for me to be a. If you want to be a good pilot, you have to be under stress, but you cannot allow the stress to overtake you.
So you have experienced emergencies yourself. Have you seen someone ejecting as well, or facing any serious emergency?
Yeah, I seen one MiG-27 burning in front of my own eyes. That was scary. It was in my initial part of my service. Aircraft
So
had a
what actually?
there was some engine problem, and the aircraft actually caught fire on ground before takeoff. So that was scary, and that was discussed amongst all our colleagues and all. And it was just that, boss, if you are a fighter pilot, there will be emergencies, there will be failures, and you have to survive those. So to survive, you have to be prepared for those. The things can happen, and there is always a ejection handle when things are going out of hand. Just put it.
So, so is there any legendary story of fighter pilot or any aircraft or any person in the Air Force who inspires you?
Yeah, I was reading a book on 1965 war, and that really inspires me before I joined TACDE, or before I wanted to go to TACDE. Was there was one pilot, Keeler, the two brothers, and 1965, the comparatively Pakistani Air Force was much stronger than Indian Air Force. I'll not say stronger, but they had a better aircraft, and they had a Sabre aircraft, and we had a little primitive aircraft, so they could actually come very quickly, shoot them down, and go away. So Indian Air Force was losing, had a great losses in first 2 days, and third day onwards, this Keeler came and he said that the bus we cannot continue like this. So they were flying gnats. They were very small aircraft. So although the gnat is not as technically it is not as good as a Sabre, but again I say that fighter pilot has to, if he can't take him head on, he has to come from some other angle. So they lured those Sabres by flying some bigger aircraft going into the Pakistan. So they started going towards them, and Sabre was actually orbiting at the very low. Sorry, Nats were actually orbiting at a very low altitude, and they just pulled up from his blind quarters and shot them down. So they were the first one to get the kill. So Keeler brothers, they actually inspire me because from an inferior aircraft, it should shot down the superior aircraft just because they were applying their knowledge about adversary's limitation and own strength.
So there's also one video where Rafael locked down F-22 twice. This was, I think, exercise red flag. This was in UAE. So it's just that not the aircraft is limitation. You have the pilot also is there on how to exploit the aircraft and how well you exploit the aircraft. And so, can you tell us about your experience in Kargil? You were in Kargil War as well. So what happened actually from your point of view, from the Air Force point of
Uh,
view?
yeah, so that is well given. Kargil, why Kargil happened? Because Pakis came and occupied some of our posts. And why by the time we realized those, they had actually established there and started claiming those areas. And from those areas, they could actually control the large portion of J&K region where they could have launched further attacks. So we would have been in a situation of disadvantage. So it was important for us to take over those hills. So that is the full story about Kargil in brief. During Kargil was in 99 and I was posted to 17 Squad which participated in Kargil War actively. So our squadron participated in the Kargil War. Our initial aim was that as we were to follow the role of photo reconnaissance, we used to have a camera under the belly of the aircraft and squadron used to take the photographs of the targets. But
Was this
after
MiG-21?
squadron,
So was this MiG-21R?
this was MiG-21 Type 96.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So Squadron leader Ajay Ahuja was shot on during that time. From there, we realized that the aircraft cannot fly at low levels because we cannot fight the Stinger missiles that Pakis were having that time. And Stinger had a limitation that it could climb up to a certain height, 3.54 kilometers. So now when we have to go into that area, we have to be above that height. And over hill, if you are above 4 kilometer, hill base itself is a 5 kilometers. So when you're going to 9 kilometers height and dropping the weapon from there was a very difficult part because we did not have the ballistics. Ballistics are the tables which say that if you drop a bomb at particular speed and particular height, what distance it will fall down. So those reports were not there, tables were not there. So because the air density changes rapidly at higher altitude, it was difficult to calculate those. So Squadron followed a GPS bombing and Squadron participated in the GPS bombing. I was not fully operational by that time. I was I had joined. I just done my solo, and I was attached with the Indian Army in the Western sector for a role of forward area controller, whose job used to be in case the war escalates into the Western sector, we'll be taking them, uh, getting using our fighter planes in support of army.
So, so now the dynamics of war has changed. Uh, it is totally different now. There is a valley, there is mountain coming up. So did you fly during night? And can you describe that? Have you had any night flying combat?
Yeah, night flying is combat is nothing. BB with the BBR combat coming up. Yes, night flying is the most beneficial time in night because your aircraft performance increases because of temperature and all. Your missile performance improves because of the lower temperature, the higher guided missiles. So not that much, but yes, it does make a certain difference. And night combat takes place, BVR combat. Yes, when we do the visual combat like dogfight, it is very unlikely in night because, as I said, the for dogfight you have to have the visual combat. So
Yes.
night flying, yes, in the Air Force, till the time I left, night flying was given a very much importance. All the pilots are required to be night qualified so that we fight best in the night. And night is the best time to fight because this is the if the adversary is not night qualified, the pilots are not night qualified, the number of pilots that it can launch will be reduced. Because night flying requires a special clearances and all.
So, so apart from Su-30, did you have any dogfight against Mirage and any other aircraft?
Yeah, we had it. But yes, MiG-21 is not made for the dogfight against Mirage or MiG-29. The aircraft are much more better in terms of design and aircraft capability. So if you compare that MiG-21 having a dogfight with Mirage, yeah, we shot down Su-30, but it was just one fluke. But if the Su-30 pilot is clueful, which they are, they will not let the MiG-21 take them down like this. So the capability as well as the pilot capability, aircraft capability does make a difference. That there is no doubt in that.
Yes, sir. So, where were you posted during Operation Parakram? And what was the role of your squadron at that time?
Yeah, Operation Parakram, I was again in the 17th Squadron only. But unlike in Kargil, I was not operational. In Parakram, I was operational. And, for Parakram, my squadron shifted to Srinagar and we operated from there for almost 1.5 years.
So, we are coming to end of the podcast. So, what's the most challenging mission or operation you were part of? And is there any message that you want to share with the listeners and the young aspirants as well that holds special place in your heart? Any message that holds special place in your heart?
Challenging mission, if you say that, yes, we are simulating Chinese SAGW systems and we had to penetrate as a Indian Air Force uh, into the target defended by a Chinese system. We were
We
simulating
operate
and
Chinese area as well.
no, we were operating and that was the most challenging because these days the SAGW systems that our adversaries have, they have technologically and potentially also they have become very strong. So it is not very easy for a fighter pilot to deceive them and reach till the target, especially if you do not have a stand-off weapon. So that was one of the most challenging. उसमें बहुत दिमाग लगाया लेकिन mm, it is very difficult to defeat the ground missile systems in case they are awake. So that's a second challenging was to integrate the UAVs into the taking help of UAVs or special forces to launch the laser guided weapons, not from MiG-21 but from the other aircraft also. That was one challenging part that I had undertaken in TACDE. So those were the challenges, technologically and challenges, and more than the technology, it is the psychology and procedural changes that we had to take. I had to take on. So, coming to the your part that any message that I want to be, I'll just say that if you want to be a fighter pilot, first of all, stress को दिमाग से निकाल दो. There should not be any stress. The stress should be there. It should be positive stress. It should not turn into a negative stress. There will be stress will be there because you are not doing a normal job. Second is work hard, party hard, and live life.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for coming on a podcast. I'm sure the audience has learned quite a lot. I myself, as a host, learned quite a lot, and it was really honor to have you over here, sir. Thank you so much.
So I'm happy. I'm happy that you young people are taking the feeds and spreading the information. Uh, my information is my personal information and my personal views. So, but I'm happy that yes, you are looking forward for these things because fighter pilot's life, like I was when I was child, I didn't know anything about fighter pilot. I just went to Air Force because I wanted to be an astronaut. But when I became a fighter pilot, I realized that there are many things which normal people do not have the capability to see it, and that's why they do not get motivated to join Air Force. So if what others are saying, you are just hearing 1%. The 99% is for you guys to get into the cockpit, fly at high altitude or lower altitude at high speed, and enjoy the combat. So the opportunities are minimum, opportunities are unlimited, fun is unlimited, challenges are unlimited, and the most importantly, the job satisfaction is unlimited. So best of luck to you all and to all viewers. Enjoy.